Hey, it's Steve with Clear Choice. Today I want to talk to you about condensation and what causes condensation on windows and things like that. So we've got a typical Wisconsin day. It's about 6 degrees out, so very cold, and it's a day that sometimes we'll get people calling. They might see some condensation on their windows and stuff. So I want to talk about a few things that cause condensation and stuff like that. So what you're typically going to see in a home is the temperatures drop and the humidity rises sometimes in homes, that you'll start to see some condensation forming. You might even see this in the fall, actually. You get that first cool day in like October, and you've still got a lot of that humidity left in the house from the summer, and you might even see some condensation in late September, early October. But what happens as we get into these cold days is a couple things. First thing I'll start with is when I went to school to be an energy auditor, the first thing they taught me is heat moves towards cold. It's always in motion. And the bigger the difference between inside temperature and outside temperature is, the faster that heat's going to move towards cold. So what happens is you'll have a house with some high humidity levels in it, 45, 50%, or even 40% if it's cold out. And all that warm, moist air is moving towards the glass. And what happens is when it hits your glass, even if they're the most energy efficient window made, it's still going to reach its dew point at some point and then drop its condensation on the bottom of the window, or sometimes you'll see it in the middle of the window on double hungs and stuff. So what that basically is doing then is that glass has reached its dew point and it's condensed down onto the glass itself. Now, what causes this to happen is kind of like a glass of cold lemonade on a hot summer day. You see all that condensation around it again. You've got all that warm, moist air, and it's reached this dew point against that cold surface, and again, that's caused it to condense. So what you're going to find is the higher the humidity is in your house, the more likely you're going to see condensation on your glass. So we've got people with triple pane windows, low E, 2 coats of low E Krypton gas, that they'll have 60% humidity in their house, and they might even see ice in their windows with that high humidity. So homes have gotten tighter over the years. You're going to find that the houses that, like I grew up in, that you can walk around and shock each other during the winter are kind of going by the wayside, if you will, as new houses are built. And in the last 20, 30, 40 years, they've gotten tighter. Tyvek and wind barrier wraps going on houses. Windows, when you replace windows, sometimes that's making the houses even 20, 30% tighter, just replacing the windows. So what's happening then is the old days of all that cool, dry air coming into your house are being now kept outdoors like they should be, but the problem is the humidity levels start to creep up on the inside. So it's a good thing to keep that cool, dry air on the outside, but the problem is you got to kind of control that humidity on the inside. So the human body gives off on average a gallon and a half of moisture per day. So then if you have a family of 4, you've got a couple of dogs and plants, and you're taking showers and cooking and stuff, it's like walking into your house every day with at least a 5-gallon bucket of water and dumping it on the ground. And that's just all that moisture starts to build up because, again, it's not being replaced by that cool, dry air. So I always tell people windows kind of act as like a barometer in your house. If you're starting to see condensation on the bottom of your windows, if you've got energy efficient windows, that's probably meaning your humidity is too high. So what I generally recommend to people is get something like this, keep one of these like in a master bedroom, and then one kind of in the center of the room, away from windows. I've got this here just to kind of show people what they are, but you want to keep these kind of in the center of the room. And these are something you can pick up at the Walmart, Menards, something like that for about 10 bucks a piece. And these are going to tell you your humidity levels. I don't recommend the typical gauges and stuff. They're not very accurate. Even these here, I recommend replace them about every 5 years because over time they start to not be very accurate. So again, keep an eye on that and watching your humidity levels. So, again, with windows, as that warm, moist air is hitting that glass, it's condensing and dropping its condensation on the window. So if you start to see that, that means your humidity is getting too high and you're causing bigger problems in your house. You can actually see sheets of ice forming in your roof, which will lead to wet marks on your ceiling. It can lead to mold in your ceiling, mold in your walls. I've been in plenty of homes over the years where we've seen mold up in the attic, or we've opened up walls and seen mold inside of the walls because they run too high in humidity. So you want to keep that humidity in check. I always tell people once winter gets here, your humidity should never exceed 40%. And as the temperature drops, that humidity should drop with it, even sometimes below 30% if possible. Like our office today, our showroom, we're running about 16 to 20% humidity in here, and you'll notice there's no condensation. So my personal home, I try to keep my humidity in check to make sure, when it gets down to those single digits, my humidity is usually running somewhere between 20 and 25% at the most, and that avoids the condensation. Couple other things you're going to find if you've got thick honeycomb shades or some type of window treatment, or even thick drapes that's preventing the heat from getting to your glass. That's also going to contribute to condensation forming on your windows and or ice if it gets extremely cold. So again, you want to always make sure you get some heat that's getting to that glass. And if it doesn't, again, that glass is going to get colder if the heat can't get to it, which is going to make it a lower humidity amount to cause that condensation to happen on your window. Because again, as the temperature lowers, that means it takes a lower dew point to reach that condensation level. So again, making sure you get some heat on those windows, or if you have blinds that go all the way down to the bottom, if you can keep them cracked open on the bottom or on the top a little bit to allow that heat to get to that glass, is going to help quite a bit. So a couple other things that you want to look for in your house too is make sure if you've got a humidifier running. These HVAC companies love to sell people these whole house humidifiers, and back in the old days those are great when you need them, but most houses these days just don't need them. So if you've got a whole house humidifier, turn it down, or maybe even look at turning it off possibly. If you've got wood floors, I realize you've got to manage that humidity level, but again, the big thing is to make sure that humidity is in check. So again, below 40%, and as the temperature drops, maybe even below 30%. If it gets down below zero like it's going to tonight, you're probably going to want that humidity level somewhere between 20 and 25% to avoid condensation forming. Master bedrooms and bathrooms are always going to be 5 to 10% higher because again, you've got adults in there sleeping, breathing, showers, stuff like that. So again, those rooms are always going to be 5 to 10% higher. So don't be surprised sometimes if you see that condensation in your bathroom, especially with showers going, or your bedroom and not the rest of the house, because again, those are usually 10% higher. So if you're running your fans, above your stove when you're cooking, running the fan when you're taking showers, make sure you run those and then keep them running for a good 15-20 minutes after the shower is done. Again, that'll help to pull some of the condensation out of the air, or the humidity out of the air, which will prevent the condensation, I should say. You get around the holidays and stuff, when you've got a lot of people over, you're going to see condensation more prevalent and happening. And again, that's because you've got now 10 people giving off 1.5 gallons of moisture off of their body, and they're breathing and stuff like that. So sometimes I tell people you just got to maybe crack open a window and let some of that cool, dry air in to help get that humidity level down in your house. Make sure you run fans, maybe even keep a bathroom fan running, for the day or the time that people are there to, again, help pull some of that humidity out of the air. So if you still are developing issues after doing these preventive measures, sometimes people will look at doing a air-to-air heat exchanger where you can set your humidity level and it controls. And what those do is they attach to your ductwork, and as what happens is the humidity gets too high, they turn on. They pull that warm, moist air out of the house and they bring in cool, dry air. They heat it up in a box, so when they're dumping the air back in your house, it's a little bit warmer, but again, it's still that dry air, which helps control the humidity as well. So stuff like this is what's really going to help you prevent that moisture and condensation from forming. And again, when it gets extremely cold, even having ice forming, because again, if you're running 40% humidity and it's 10 below zero outside and you've got window treatments and stuff, it's not going to be uncommon to see even ice forming on your windows. So again, typically there's nothing wrong with the windows. It's just you got to get that humidity in check, because again, if you don't, you're going to cause bigger issues inside your walls and your ceilings with the ice forming up there. And again, wet spots on the ceiling. I was in a home about 5 years ago. They'd call me out to do an energy audit, and they literally had water dripping from every wall, along the wall and the ceiling throughout their entire house. And I walked in, they were running 65% humidity, and it was about 10 below zero the day I was there. So way too much humidity. You don't want your house to feel like Florida in the dead of winter. So again, little tips that can help you prevent problems like this from occurring. So if you have questions or anything too, feel free to give us a call. But hopefully this video will kind of help you understand what causes condensation on your windows and how to help control it better. So thanks for watching and have a great day.